So this is just crazy. So outside of YouTube, I've got an Instagram page and a TikTok page, and I post a lot of short clips to those. The stuff that always gets the most traction are absolutely the pilots. Especially this one here, my 670 Skidoo snowmobile swapped Honda Pilot. So recently, I posted a video, which actually I'll play the clip here. So, out of the blue, Dax Shepard comments on this video and was like, build me one. If you don't know who Dax Shepard is, so he's an actor, writer, director and stuff, hosts huge podcasts and everything. So definitely look him up. More famously though, he's married to Kristen Bell. I'm sure everybody knows who Kristen Bell is. So, and I'm actually a huge Dax Shepard fan. I listen to Armchair Expert. It's kind of like the only podcast I listen to. I've been following him for a while, and I noticed he liked it, he commented on it, and they started following me back. You know, I didn't know if he was just trying to be funny or if he was actually being serious. So I'm like, naturally, I got to follow up on this. So I sent him a message and was like, well, I got to follow up. If you're serious about building one, I would absolutely love an excuse to build another Pilot and do everything right and do things different than I did on this one. He responded back and was like, I'm dead serious. How do we get this process going? So I was like, well, give me a call. And a couple days later, he gives me a call. We start talking about some of the details and everything. 1 week later, I got a Pilot sitting here. So, we're going to build a Pilot. So, here's our blank canvas. So, luckily, I knew where a bunch of pilots were at. So, that's kind of the hardest part about this whole deal. I was kind of telling him, it's hard to find a good Pilot to start with. Most of the ones out here are kind of junk and stuff. As far as like the engine swap goes, the snowmobile motors are dime a dozen. It's super easy. That's the easy part. So luckily, about a year ago, there was a guy out in Denver that sold like 40 Honda Pilots, and I went out there, actually had a video on it, kind of bought and sold a couple to a guy out in Vegas, and then a guy I know locally, he bought like, I don't know, 6 or 8 of them or something like that. And so I kind of hit him up. I was like, hey, you want to let a Pilot go? I've got a kind of a big project coming. And then, so first I was kind of thinking just a stock one. And then I kind of remembered that he bought this one when he was out there that has an 800 Skidoo motor in it. So yeah, when I was talking to Dax, I was like, you know, the options are, mine's got a 670 Skidoo motor in it, which is like 120 horse. You can also do an 800, which is like, 145, maybe 150. I was like, if you're going to do it, you might as well go big. He was like, absolutely, 800cc, without a doubt. So we bought this thing. So the plan is to finish this. So, and absolutely do this thing right. So unfortunately, this thing, I mean, the motor's in here, but it's pretty hacked. I mean, this is a Flowmaster exhaust on here. You know, dumb things like this where they just kind of welded, you know, and this pipe is really retrofitted. Horrible, horrible welds. I mean, I guess the saying goes, if you got a welder, there's a way. But we're going to reuse this motor and then kind of redo everything else. So the plan is to fully strip this thing down. Since we're going to be fixing some tubes on the frame and clean that up, we're going to powder coat the frame and everything. New tires, new wheels, long travel suspension up front, put a new bumper on this thing. Seat on this one, not horrible seat, but not great. So we're going to put a razor seat in it. I think this thing's going to look pretty sweet with that black and red stitching in there. So the plan on this one is to basically do it like my 670 here, only just do everything right on it. And so there's a company called Far Off Road that actually makes kits for these things to fully swap the Rotax engines in there. And that's actually what my 670 has. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a lot of those same sort of components, which makes it really nice because basically most of the stuff just essentially going to bolt in. And we're not going to do a lot of fabrication. Really, the only fabrication we're going to do is fixing the stuff that was already broken on that one and then, you know, getting that seat to fit in there and stuff. But yeah, let me show you kind of my 671, kind of how that all goes in there and what we're going to do. Oh, so mine's nice and dirty here at the moment, but, you know, big thing is We have a different gas tank because normally the gas tank on the stock Pilot is right there, kind of tucked behind the seat, which we won't have room for that. Plus, we want a bigger gas tank because the snowmobile engines, they take a lot of gas. So, custom gas tank, bigger radiator. These are actually like a Honda Civic radiator. That's going to go on there. We're not going to do an auxiliary gas tank like this one at all. The pipe. So, we're going to use a custom pipe made by Far Off Road. So, this is going to actually mount in here, use some of the stock mounts. It can be tucked back behind there so you can use your stock seating position. So right now where that pipe is at, this seat is kind of sucked forward a little bit. Dax is a big guy, so we're going to try to give him as much leg room as possible on it. Yeah, and kind of all this stuff essentially bolts in here and stuff. So I think what our plan is right now is we're going to get this other Pilot on the lift and we're going to start stripping it down a little bit. So pulling the plastics off and getting this thing kind of ready to fix this frame. My goal is to basically get the frame powder coated, ready, so that once my components show up for all the engine swap stuff, we can start bolting that stuff up and then put all of our plastics, wheels, tires, front suspension, shocks. We're going to do some aftermarket shocks on as well. And this thing's going to be awesome. So definitely follow along. This is going to be kind of a big, long build series and stuff where we're just kind of going to take it step by step. And if you've ever thought about doing a swap on a Honda Pilot with a Rotax, this is what you're going to need to do. So let's go get this Pilot up on the lift and start tearing it down. So what we're going to start with first on this is we're going to yank all these plastics off, kind of all the fenders, the front and rear, and then probably get the seat out too so we can start working on kind of getting this old motor stuff out. Unfortunately, this exhaust and everything is all just kind of hard welded in here, basically welded there, and then up on the top, this strap there is welding that. So we're going to cut this stuff out of there, and then this frame, we're all going to get all of that stuff finished up. Fortunately, looks like they cut this bracket from here to kind of relocate the radiator up. Normally on these, the radiator sat kind of more down here on them, but we're not going to reuse any of that stuff or any of this stuff. We'll have new radiator mounts, all these tabs and stuff we're going to get cleaned up because shouldn't actually need any of those. The way the kit works is most stuff kind of clamps onto these bars with their own kind of separate brackets and everything. The motor on this, like I said, it is an 800 Skidoo motor. This would be from like early 2000s, kind of like probably like a 99 to about 2002-ish range is kind of what it looks like this motor is. We will reuse the stock carbs on it, but these intake boots are going to get removed. There's kind of a different style, newer style one that's got a little more up and arch to it. That'll get these carbs a little higher yet and out of the way. We'll have airbox stuff built in here as well. And yeah, add electric start to this motor too, because I don't think anybody wants to be pull starting it. Okay, so let's get these fenders ripped off here. So basically, we've just got a few mounting bolts and tabs up underneath here. We'll get all that stuff zipped off. The seat on these, basically down on the bottom side here, kind of up here and there. There's just like 4 bolts that hold this seat pan and stuff in. So we'll get that out as well. Oh, it's looking pretty naked. Okay, we got all those side fenders off. Everything's sitting there. So the side fenders and headlight. We're gonna do the same thing on the other side. I might pull this tub out right away too. Yeah, probably. We'll just get it fully stripped down to the frame and get this seat out here quick too. Just like that, we've got the other side off. It's kind of crazy how different these things look with no plastics on them. So I think the last thing we're gonna do here, we're gonna pull this tub out, get the seat out of the way, and then we're gonna look at this motor. Looking at it a little bit, this mess of angle iron, I believe they welded it to that front engine mount. That might be welded as well. We're going to see. I think the plan here is get the seat out of the way and then get this motor and pipe and everything cut off and out of the way too, so we can see exactly what we're working with. Front tub's out. We're down to some of the bare bones. So here's the whole steering system on this thing, as well as a little bit of wiring we've got up front and the brake system. Got some hard lines that run up to the front. All the shifter cables there. All right, let's pull this seat out and get this motor out of the way. The seat bolts are kind of interesting on this seat here. So they've got kind of a dual thread system where you can back it out, and then this allows it to kind of slide inside there. So these seats are adjustable front to back and everything. So yeah, it's kind of weird when you start zipping these things out and all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's loose but won't come out, because there's like 3 more threads you got to get out. Well, apparently on the other side they weren't using those fancy bolts and just threw some normal ones in there. That's something you kind of find with pulling something apart somebody's messed with. Even if you think things are in super good shape, you know, when things are almost 40 years old, you naturally find stuff that has been pulled apart and replaced. And so I think I'm going to replace a lot of this hardware. So little things like this, like that shouldn't be a Phillips head screw. It should be a shoulder bolt like that and stuff. So since we've got it this far apart, we're just going to make this thing awesome. All right, seat's loose. Let's pull it out of here. All right, now we've got a good look at this pipe. So they definitely just took the original snowmobile pipe and cut it down there and welded it. They cut this Y-fitting tube and kind of changed the angle of that as well. Brought this up here, welded this. I don't know why they use this Flowmaster exhaust. Like, you could have just used a muffler off a dirt bike or something like that, or even a snowmobile can would have made more sense. And then our angle iron mount down here is hard welded to the original motor mounts. You can see back in there that welded this angle iron, not great, to the original motor mount. So we'll have to call that off and clean up, which those original tabs should be salvageable. We'll sand off all that old weld. So I think the next step is pull the angle grinder out, cut off wheel, and start cutting this muffler off of here. I think this seat's going to look pretty awesome in here. It's definitely going to be a little more comfy than the original one. Much better padding, better side bolstering. So in order to get this pipe off, looks like we'll just need to remove the springs there, and then I think the only other thing holding on would be this tab here. So we'll just cut that off quick and then undo those springs, and then this whole pipe and muffler should be off and out of the way. All right, it's free. See if I can wiggle this thing out of here. There it goes. Ridiculous. Part of me kind of wishes I would have just started this thing up just to hear what this thing sounded like. Oh well. Probably not worth it. Well, there we go. Pipe's out of there. So I think we're going to pull this motor off. This thing. Jeez, look how loose this belt is. Like, that is just way too much slop and deflection in that belt. I'm curious if they ever actually drove this thing. I don't know what they're going to use for a gas tank. This motor will unbolt. There's basically some bolts on the bottom side of those rubber grommets. The angle iron, though, we'll have to cut out. Looks like we got some coolant dripping. This is something I noticed, too. To use the original size radiator hoses, it looks like this is just a copper pipe, I think, that they jammed in there. And then just use some JB Weld or something, which is kind of flaking off to kind of seal that up. So it's kind of dripping right now. The nice thing about the kit is we'll have all the correct size hoses and stuff, and so it's actually going to seal up and not leak. All right, let's get this motor out. Well, while we got the motor still sitting in here, I think I'm just going to check compression on it. I haven't heard this motor run. Seems to turn over just fine. Always a good sign when you got mismatched spark plugs. NGK and a Champion. Piston on, I just took the reed valves off and stuff. Piston skirts don't show any obvious signs of wear. A little scrape on that side. I think there's a good chance I might still just throw some new pistons in this thing. So once I get it out, I'll probably pull the heads off and pull the cylinder off of it and really inspect it. But well, let's do a compression check on it quick and see what's showing. Well, that's pretty darn good. That's the first cylinder. We'll check the second one there, about 140 psi. It's pretty good for a two-stroke. I know all my old 583s and 670s and stuff like that, whenever I do a compression check on them, they'd always be like 100, but they always ran great. All right, let's check this other side. Hopefully it's about the same. Oh, that's like spot on. Pretty much the same there, 140 on the other side too. All right, I think we got a pretty good healthy motor here though. All right, we're gonna drain some coolant out of this thing. Probably just pull the line off down at the bottom. Get this coolant drained out of it, unbolt it. Basically, we've got our stator wires here going up to CDI. We'll unplug this stuff, unbolt this CDI, unhook some coolant lines, unhook this belt, and then motor should be free. Got this coolant drained out of here, so this top fitting, that's what I expected. It's literally a pipe fitting that's just shoved in there and some JB weld and stuff holding that together. So looks like they used these original hoses from the 400 and kind of adapted it to make work on the 800. All right, we've got this thing pretty much free minus the engine bolts. So on the back side here, we've got 4 little nuts there on these bolts, and this little rubber grommet thing threads into the bottom of the block. So we'll undo that stuff, and I think this motor will slide right out. All right, this motor's loose. Should lift up and out of the way. Oh, yeah, there we go. Yeah. Oop, vacuum line I forgot about. That'll work. Take the fuel pump with it. Oh, the cable's caught. And here's our motor. And our almost naked chassis. So we've got to get these things out. So I think we're going to end here for today. So next part on the to-do list is we're going to fix some tubes. Like I said, we got to make a new one to run across there, and this little diagonal brace, we'll add that onto that side. Get these old engine mounts cut out of here. Get all of those tabs and stuff cleaned up on this thing. And then we've got to fix like these brackets back here. No idea what they had going on here, what those were even off of, because they're not meant to be there. And then, like I said, this tab up here, which was originally, looks like it was welded down here. So I don't think we're needing that, but we're gonna double check for sure. Clean this stuff up, you know, sand all these extra welds down, and basically get this frame essentially kind of ready for paint. That's kind of my goal. So get this whole thing kind of prepped, and then we'll get everything else stripped down off of it. We'll send the frame out, get that powder coated, and hopefully by the time I get that thing back, we'll have all of our components to start bolting together the mount set up for the engine. So definitely stay tuned, follow along.